Translations for closed captions in various languages are also available. To turn on this feature, click the CC icon at the bottom of your screen, turn on translation, and select the closed caption language of your choice. Type your question in the chat box and our speaker will address them at the end of their presentation. So for today, we are delighted to have two presenters. And I would say that this is like in celebration of Women's Month, these are empowered young professionals. So we have Dr. Elizabeth Novakova from the Department of Addictology at Charles University. She is a junior researcher with background in addictology studies and leadership in health and social services. Her interests are quality assurance, quality standards, evidence-based interventions, psychotherapy, and prevention. She is involved in various projects such as revision of quality standards in prevention or clinical guidelines development. She is also the founder of the Center for Quality Assurance within the department. She is joined today by the co-founder of the center, Dr. Renáta Habiňáková, who obtained her degree in addiction studies at the First Faculty of Medicine, Charles University. She worked on a European project aimed at providing systemic support for the development of addiction services in the Czech Republic, focusing mainly on the financing of these services from 2017 to 2021. The following year, she obtained a professional qualification as a project manager and a Prince 2 certification. She currently works at the Department of Addictology as a researcher. She is also a member of the Working Group for the Development of Clinical Guidelines and the Working Group for revising the certification process in prevention. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll turn over the floor to Dr. Elizabeth and Dr. Renáta. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for introducing us, and thank you for being with us today. So, just a second, please. Can you see the presentation, please?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so okay, so let's start with a little bit of background. So substance use is on the rise globally, unfortunately. Estimates show that more than 39 million people experience drug-related harm in 2021, but only 1 in 5 of them were receiving treatment. The COVID pandemic has also negatively impacted access to treatment and the number of people seeking care. Health systems and services can be effective if they are available, accessible, and of a good quality. The addiction workforce needs to adapt to these new challenges, trends, and needs. It's essential to support quality training for addiction professionals and build their capacity to deliver care through a resilient, skilled, and competent workforce. So what do we mean when talking about quality? Quality doesn't have a single or uniform definition for all, but we can say that quality often means meeting established standards, fulfilling user needs, and consistently providing value or excellence in a particular context. We can probably also agree that accessibility, competent staff, client involvement, and individualized care are important. In education, quality refers to the effectiveness and efficiency with which educational services meet the needs and expectations of students, stakeholders, and society. One of the key aspects of quality education is the learning outcomes. That means that students have the necessary knowledge and skills and competencies. And what we mean when talking about quality assurance is a systematic process to monitor and improve that the product or service or system meets specified standards, requirements, or expectations. Quality assurance aims to prevent failure or problems in the implementation of effective systems and standards. So there is the basic quality assurance model. This model includes the 3 key parts and is designed to systematically evaluate, improve, and ensure the quality of processes, products, or services within organization, typically in education, manufacturing, or service industries. The quality assurance model creates a cycle of continuous improvement through assessing the current state of operations to understand the baseline, then identifying key areas that are underperforming or not meeting the standards, and then designing targeted interventions to correct or improve those areas. Monitoring the results, that's also an important part to ensure they're effective with follow-up actions as needed to maintain or further improve quality. This process helps organizations continuously refine their practices, adapt to changing, and ensure that they deliver consistent high-quality results. So how did the entire concept of quality and quality assurance actually come about? This term is originally from the industrial environment. The history begins as early as the end of the 13th century with the system of crafts and guilds. And the greatest boom occurred during the 19th century with the development of industry. 2 main milestones were Industrial Revolution and the period after World War II. There was a shift from, and 2 countries have played a particularly important role. It was Japan and USA. There was a shift from quality control to quality assurance, meaning that attention is not paid not only to the result, but also to the entire process. Western experts drew inspiration primarily from Japanese companies, and they demonstrated a high level of success. And there was even talk of the Japanese economic miracle. Then USA came with a total quality management model. It's based on the full involvement of all employees in building and a good level of quality. Until 1980s, quality management was based on hard aspects such as clear strategy, structure, and the fulfillment of goals. This period is referred to as a Fordism. And the following post-Fordism era introduced the cultural approach to management utilizing soft aspects. Okay. And why does it matter? Quality of addiction care or services relates closely to the quality of addiction workforce. That's the topic of today. And quality education should be necessarily developed in contact and collaboration with practice. So that's the importance and role of quality standards. It forms a bridge between the science and practice. We need minimum level of quality for effective and safe care, and it's also a tool for self-evaluation. In education, just like in many other fields, there are standards that manage the processes carried out by educational institutions such as universities. Some of these standards take the form of government regulations that are mandatory for all institutions providing educational services, while others are voluntary. Higher education institutions themselves also become more diverse in their missions, including digital learning and new forms of delivery. Responding to diversity and growing expectations for higher education requires a shift in its provision. It requires a more student-centered approach to learning and teaching, embracing flexible learning paths and recognizing competencies gained outside formal curricula. So the role of quality assurance is crucial in supporting higher education systems and institutions in responding to these changes, while ensuring the qualifications achieved by students and their experience of higher education remain at the forefront of institutional missions. On the slide, you can see example of standards and guidelines for quality assurance in the European higher education area with their principles. So quality standards are one of the tools used in the quality assurance process, a measure that helps to assess whether an activity, a provider, etc., represents high quality. Quality standards are principles and sets of rules that may be used to implement interventions. It can be described as a statement of expected requirements. It can also refer to content issues, processes, or to structural aspects. Quality standards provide clear and aspirational, measurable statements related to content, processes, or structural aspects of quality assurance, often set by recognized national or international bodies and based upon professional consensus. So here we can see 6 steps to consider when implementing quality assurance processes and standards by EUDA. The first step is the initial phase, focuses on the identification of the problem that the quality assurance project will address. Important questions here might include: what needs is the project responding to? What is it trying to achieve? Is there a need for improvement in particular service or system? The second step is, once there is a diagnosis of the problem and the needs are clarified, we focus on decisions on what leadership is required, who needs to be involved as key stakeholders, and the resources needed for this project. This step should conclude with the development of a concrete plan. Important questions are: what are the goals and who is to be involved? Third step is, at this stage, both the needs and scoping of the project are clear, and the project group has been set up for this work on the implementation of quality standards. The next step is to decide which quality standards are most appropriate to use. The next step is number 4. After needs are identified and we decided on the scope of standards implementation and map the existing or suitable standards, and we choose most appropriate standards. A key element to successfully completing this step is establishing consensus on the data required and choice of verification method. Number 5 is when, where, and to whom to communicate. The results should be presented as a written report. The results of the quality assurance assessment should be communicated to the managers. And if the quality assurance process is new or the results are poor or controversial, it may be beneficial to present and discuss the results in a meeting before. The report will need to be followed by an implementation plan of actions to improve or consolidate the quality standards. And the last step is the overall goal of the quality assurance project is to enable a culture of continuous improvement to become part of the services and systems. In this last step, focus primarily on ensuring a cycle or process of continuous evaluation. It's also possible to start at the different points in the cycle, and especially for those already engaged in a quality assurance process. So this project, Planix EU, it was in 2022-2023, and this project aimed to identify good practice examples, successful implementation models and strategies, and key stakeholders to identify do's and don'ts for implementation of quality standards in different areas of drug demand reduction. On the website, you can find implementation toolkit and also videos how to implement quality standards if you're interested. And quality standards, and quality assurance tools. So besides standards, there are also guidelines, audit certifications, accreditations, evidence-based interventions, evaluation. All of these tools are using for quality assurance.
Okay. In recent years, we have witnessed exponential growth of addiction-specific services, which has led to increasing demand and pressure for the professionalization of the workforce in addictions. This trend highlights the importance of having qualified and well-trained staff who are capable of effectively addressing the complex issues related to addiction. This rapid development is also reflected in the growing number of university and higher education programs that focus specifically on substance use. These new academic offerings are a response to the need for specialists who can provide quality care and support to those who struggle with addiction. Students in these programs are being prepared to work in a challenging and constantly evolving field. In such a rapidly changing environment, there is an increasing emphasis of quality assurance of the services provided, as well as of the education and training of the workforce. The ICU-DDR database currently contains almost 700 addiction programs, which show significant variability in education. This wide range of differences highlights a lack of common perspective and standardized criteria across programs. The education and training opportunities for addiction treatment professionals vary considerably from region to region, and there is a clear lack of common criteria or uniform perspective to establish minimum standards and evidence-based practices for addiction education. This disparity creates challenges in ensuring consistency and quality across the field. Experts strongly emphasize the need to establish core competencies to address this issue. The heterogeneity in terms of competencies, curricula, and standards is vast, but there have been ongoing work to create the standardized models. Since the 1980s, efforts have been made to define the necessary competency models, set standards for the unification of practice, and develop curricula for university education and training. Addiction studies could be effectively structured based on competency models, which would define the required skills, knowledge, and practical competencies needed to work in the field. By adopting such models, the field could move forward to more unified and evidence-based training standards. There are several reasons for the lack of standardized education in addiction studies, including, for instance, lack of diagnostic criteria for behavior and process addictions. Unlike substance use disorders, behavior process addictions such as gambling or internet addiction often lack universally accepted diagnostic criteria, which complicates the development of standardized educational frameworks. Also, there is a lack of consensus on the link between addiction and other phenomena. There is ongoing debate about the relationship between addiction and other psychological or social conditions, such as mental health disorders, trauma, or socioeconomic factors. This lack of consensus can hinder the development of a unified approach to addiction education and treatment. There is also a belief that treatment should be provided by traditional professions. In many regions, there is still belief that addiction treatment should be exclusively handled by established professions such as psychiatry, psychology, or medicine, which can limit the expansion and integration of addiction-specific education into a broader professional training program. Heterogeneous system. The differences in educational, training, accreditation, and credit systems across regions and institutions contribute to the lack of standardization. Variability is how addiction education is structured, makes it difficult to establish consistent global standards for training and professional development. However, research indicates that progress is being made in addressing these challenges. Diagnostic criteria for behavior and process addictions are actively being formulated, and studies have shown that addiction can affect many aspects of a person's life, including the mental health, relationships, social functioning. Additionally, addiction and the difficulties associated with it impact the work of clinicians across various fields, regardless of the primary area of practice. This demonstrates the need for a more unified, interdisciplinary approach to addiction education and treatment. Addiction treatment involves a wide range of professionals, each bringing different knowledge, skills, and competencies to the table. Each of these roles has its own specific knowledge base and educational requirements, shaped by the different approaches to care. As a result, their objectives in treating addiction can vary greatly. Because of these differences in focus, each professional group has distinct competencies that need to be addressed through tailored education and training programs. Addiction specialists may require deep expertise in addiction treatment models, while, for instance, social workers might need to develop strong communication and community-based skills. These varied competencies reflect the wide-ranging nature of addiction care and the need for specialized interdisciplinary approach to training. Competencies, also referred to as competences, encompass a combination of attitudes, skills, and knowledge, representing the human capabilities to require for effective performance in a given field. In the context of addiction treatment, individual competencies can be organized and combined into competency models, which serve as a structured frameworks for training and assessment. Competency models shift the focus from traditional learning objectives that emphasize what the learner should know to a more practical approach of what the learner should be able to do. This competency-based approach focuses on measurable abilities and practical skills, ensuring that professionals are not just familiar with theoretical knowledge, but they are also capable of applying it in real-world situations. Unlike traditional educational models, which are often based on time limits, such as completing a 3-month internship, the competency-based approach is flexible. Trainees continue their training until they are able to demonstrate the progress and can advance to the next level. This ensures that individuals are fully prepared for the challenges they will face in a professional role before they move forward. In addiction treatment, workers should develop a deep understanding of several fundamental areas. These include the process of addiction formation and development, principles for working with clients, and the transdisciplinary and multidisciplinary aspects of addictive behavior and treatment. This is how we can imagine what competencies mean. It's not just skills, knowledge, and abilities, but also a combination of personal characteristics, organizational characteristics, and cultural context. Altogether is what makes the competent workforce. To provide good quality service, it is essential that workers are culturally competent. Professionals in addiction treatment are not able to provide effective care and interventions without addressing the culture and linguistic needs. Understanding the social culture aspect of a client is crucial for providing appropriate care that resonates with their unique circumstances. Competencies in this area include not only knowledge and skills, but also beliefs that enable workers to comprehend and respect the culture and social factors that influence the client's experience with addiction. This understanding allows for more personalized and effective interventions, which can significantly improve treatment outcomes. Education based on competency models focuses on more than just academic knowledge. It emphasizes the ability to transfer and apply that knowledge into practice, ensuring that professionals are capable of adapting their skills to real-world situations. Furthermore, competency-based education fosters lifelong learning. To support this, competencies such as a growth mindset, metacognition, self-regulation, advocacy, social emotional skills, and achievement orientation need to be developed throughout training. Competency-based education has become increasingly popular for several reasons. It helps to produce graduates who are globally competitive, enhances the quality of education, fosters deeper learning, and creates a system for continuous improvement, which is the base of the quality assurance. By focusing on competencies rather than solely on time-based metrics, this approach ensures that professionals are not only well prepared, but are also capable of adapting to the evolving demands of addiction treatment. Competency-based education requires a range of processes to be effectively implemented, including staff recruitment, performance monitoring, quality improvement, and curriculum development. In addition to defining the competencies themselves, it is equally important to establish a robust assessment system that facilitates the continuous development of these competencies. Regular assessment helps ensure that professionals are consistently improving and adapting to the changing landscape of addiction treatment. When evaluating the quality of care, the competencies of service providers are one of the key factors to consider. The more competent the workforce is, the better the quality of the care and treatment provided to the target groups. For the successful implementation of competency-based education, collaboration among various institutions is crucial. This includes universities, relevant funding ministries, care providers. Additionally, the development of distance learning, coaching, supervision opportunities is vital to ensure that professionals continue to develop their competencies throughout their whole career. Furthermore, capacity building in monitoring and evaluation processes is essential to track progress and identify areas for improvement. Competencies can be organized into categories to facilitate their application in different professional contexts. For instance, the core competencies are applicable to everyone in a specific position, such as a particular job, profession, or a specific task. Other categories include level competencies, which can be differentiated based on the level of care. For instance, family therapy competencies which apply to those providing a specific type of service or intervention. For the level competencies is, for instance, unlicensed or licensed independent care or care under the supervision. Across various studies, some of the competencies frequently mentioned include assessment, early detection, referral, empathic communication, and ethical practice. Professionals in this field should come across as caring and compassionate, empathic, friendly, reliable, accepting, and understanding. And increasing emphasis is being placed on a culture-sensitive approach in addiction treatment. Workers must address the cultural and linguistic needs of diverse population to provide competent care and interventions. The DAIS project that was ongoing for the last 2 years focus on workforce competencies in the area of addiction, and without our department, we have produced a series of review articles on competencies in general and for different professions such as nurses or doctors. Some articles are still in print, but here are examples of the articles that have already been published, if you will be interested in the topic in more depth. The development of addiction-specific curricula and standards, such as UTC and UPC by ICU-DDR and ISAP, has significantly advanced addiction education. These curricula facilitate the fast and relatively easy dissemination of addiction education across the world. Since their introduction, a wide range of programs have been developed globally. The UPC and UTC curricula serve as a structured, skill-based training focused on core competencies, which are introduced and developed in each course. In addition, an implementation guide has been developed to offer university practical strategies for the creation and execution of substance use prevention and treatment education and training curricula within the academic institutions. This guide provides universities with clear frameworks and recommendations for integrating addiction education into their academic programs. The emergence of the international networks, such as the SPR or EU SPR, has played a crucial role in fostering collaboration between universities, promoting knowledge sharing, and supporting the development of evidence-based addiction education practices. These networks serve as a platforms for global cooperation in advancing addiction research and education. Organizations like NADEC and NASEC advocate for the preservation of specific addiction education and training, highlighting the specialized nature of addiction counseling and the critical importance of maintaining a well-trained workforce. Several key institutions, such as ISEM, SAMHSA, Global Center for Credentialing and Certification, the ATTC, the CSET, are also deeply involved in advocacy, research, and activities related to addiction education and workforce development. These organizations play a pivotal role in setting standards and ensuring that addiction professionals are equipped with the competencies necessary to deliver high-quality care. For example, SAMHSA Top 21 released in 2017, and the ASAM standards from 2015, and some other competency-based materials have helped define clear benchmarks for the education and practice of addiction professionals. These guidelines and standards ensure that the addiction workforce meet the evolving needs of individuals and communities affected by substance use disorders. Organizations such as ICU-DDR, ISEM, or ISAP provide platforms for ongoing dialogue among educators and education providers. These discussions focus on curricula, standards, and other relevant issues related to addiction education and training. In 2020, the ICUDDR initiated the process of creating internationally accepted educational standards for addiction study programs. To begin this process, ICUDDR formed a partnership with NASEC to jointly develop these standards. The goal was to establish international educational standards for colleges and universities offering addiction studies programs. And here you can see the international standards guidelines that are divided in 8 core thematic areas: substance use and addictive behavior, counseling skills, substance use disorder counseling skills, biological factors of substance use disorders, clinical evaluation, treatment and service planning, information and documentation, continued professional development, and continuum of care. Here you can see the original tab 21 and actualization of this version. I wouldn't spend much time here because you can either see it in the article or for sure you will get our presentation, so you will see what was the suggestions and changes. What the expert came with was transdisciplinary foundations, such as understanding substance use disorders, knowledge of continuum of care, application to practice, and professional readiness, and then specific competencies for SUD professionals, such as clinical evaluation, treatment and service planning, referral and interdisciplinary collaboration, counseling, client, family, and community education, documentation, and professional and ethical responsibilities. The addiction field is undergoing dynamic development as new trends and challenges emerge. These include topics like behavioral addictions, the legalization of substances, and the aging of population, for instance. As these issues evolve, they bring new complexities to addiction treatment and prevention, demanding that the workforce adapts to meet the emerging needs. The need for international quality standards that cover all professionals in the addiction field, including those in prevention, treatment, harm reduction, and recovery, is becoming increasingly urgent. These standards would ensure that addiction professionals across the globe are equipped with the necessary skills and knowledge to provide high-quality care, regardless of the regional and cultural differences. However, regional and culture differences must be taken into account when developing these standards. What works in one region might not be effective in another, making it essential to balance global best practices with local context. Understanding and addressing these differences is key to implement effective addiction education and treatment worldwide. A body responsible for developing and updating these quality standards in education and core competencies within the addiction field is essential. Such an organization will oversee the continuous improvement of training programs, ensuring that the workforce is equipped to handle both current and future challenges in addiction care. No matter what the challenges we face, it is clear that developing robust educational standards and defining core competencies for the addiction workforce it's not just necessary, it is essential for ensuring effective care and treatment for individuals who are affected by addiction. These are the references, and this is the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elizabeth and Dr. Renata, for a wonderful presentation. I heard a comment about with regards to difficulty in the technical issues. We apologize for that, but I think everyone can hear us now. I have a few notes and questions, if you may. You talked about like the importance of, in terms of competency, we talked about cultural context, attitudes, and beliefs. How would you, what are your suggestions for addressing this in countries wherein um, substance use is actually heavily reliant on the criminal justice system? So, what can faculty members do or the education system do to sort of help navigate that issues?
I think it's really hard, and I'm not sure if there's more to do than really educate and advocate and educate people about the nature of addiction and teach them how the addiction is evolving and teach them about trauma and stuff like this because in those countries what else can we do? We won't change the responsible bodies. All we can do is advocacy and education. I think this is my opinion, but maybe someone has a thought on this as well.
No, I think that is like I agree with you, right? So we sometimes like don't recognize the power of small deeds such as advocacy that eventually can change the system, although it's much lower than what we want to, but it does happen. There's a question from Simon regarding how do we ensure that the curriculum for addiction studies program stays current with the latest evidence-based practices?
We need a body that will oversee this. We need professionals who will really be in contact with the current practice, with the current best practice and evidence-based interventions, and they will once in a few years update the curriculum.
So monitoring and evaluation, what you're saying is important. So a body that is responsible for like reviewing, right?
Yeah.
So the curriculum.
I think also academic institutions can play a crucial role because the people are naturally in contact with news in a field. So maybe collaboration of academic institutions and the other stakeholders to really create someone who will monitor, evaluate, and keep it updated.
So you mentioned about the monitoring and evaluation. In one of your slides, you have shared with us like some quality assurance tools, right? Audit guidelines, standards. Are these tools readily available? Is it already made and can be used?
Yeah, there are like many standards, for example, for the addiction care and accreditation systems like ISO, it's International Organization of Standardization.
Yeah.
It's also for higher education already. Yeah, like we have our national standards, national guidelines, but there are also international guidelines were inspired by with our national standards, and we have our certifications body.
I think it's important to say that European context is totally different from American context because you have a system of credits and work under the supervision, and the professional must have some hours before getting the license. And for instance, in Europe, it's more usual that the professional finish the education in either in addiction studies or something similar to like psychology, for instance, or medicine. So European and American contexts are really different. So it makes it even harder to make something that fits all because because of these differences.
Yeah, so I'm like what I'm hearing from you is that it's kind of hard to get like a universal standard because you pointed out actually a very important issue of like cultural context, right? Like local knowledge. So maybe the international standards can help us basically have that core competencies, right? The minimum guidelines, and then
Yeah.
we build from it because of what you have mentioned that this cultural differences, systemic differences that makes it a very big part of it. You mentioned about the workforce, and then in some countries, so we know that so a lot of the workforce probably doesn't have the necessary educational background, right? The requirement to provide they don't have addiction degrees, or maybe not even an addiction degree, but like an associate. So what do you are there any recommendations on how to make sure that we try to sort of like in lieu of an education, what can you recommend so that they are updated with in terms of their knowledge?
We're not sure that we get the question. Can you say it once again, please?
So if there are, let's say, for example, in lieu of an educational degree, if it's not available, so what do you think is an alternative so that they get informed with the current developments in addiction practices?
Mhm. Well, I would say, for instance, ISAP and ICUDDR is doing excellent work with all the webinars, seminars, and online education. There are also some online courses. For instance, in our department, we have INEP. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's Introduction to Evidence-Based Prevention, and we already have it in like 5 or 6 languages. So you can take a course, yeah, of course, reading. EUDA also disseminates some actual materials, but I think really ISAP and ICUDDR are crucial in this sharing the knowledge.
Oh, thank you so much for that. So, well, there are organizations, including us, that do provide um, webinars for free. So, and it's open to the public. But I'm glad that you mentioned INEP because, like, we want to invite everyone here next month on April 8th. Our webinar will be an introduction to INEP, and our speaker will be Dr. Fernando Salazar.
Mhm.
Speaking of prevention, so I just have two more questions, I guess. And for everyone who has any question, please type it in the chat box. So the competencies that you have mentioned, mostly the international standards, seems to focus more on treatment. How about prevention? Is it already on the works?
Yeah, like we identified about 4 international standards. One is EUDA again. Second one is World Health Organization and UNODC. They also have like their standards for prevention. That's minimum quality, right? Yeah, because we are currently working on our national standards for prevention. So we did this analysis, and there are already available many international standards on prevention.
That's great to hear. So I think that what I'm hearing from you is that it also helps, right? That there's an international guidelines, but then there's also the national ones that you're working on, and maybe like in a few months from now or by next year we can talk and discuss about it in another webinar. So I think that is my well, this is the last question, not unless any of our audience have one more. So we mentioned about the variety of professionals, right? The importance of having an interdisciplinary team. There were cases wherein, so you mentioned like it's kind of difficult to have a standard because we have different, like each profession would have different competencies. So do you think that, what's your suggestion in like, let's say, how do they have the basic information in terms of addiction? So, like, how do you advocate to the educational to the administrator in the university to actually have that one specific course for addiction?
Yeah, we actually do that. We have courses for our medicine students. So it's in their syllabus. It's like 2 days in a year for medicine and nurses. I
Yeah.
think. So yeah, that's
So having at least some core minimum, because addiction it touches so many professions that we really need to have at least the minimum. I think the professionals should know the basics about addiction, about how it starts, how it's evolving, basic knowledge about recovery and trauma. And I think, in my opinion, these are the basics that the professionals who are in touch with addiction, and it can be doctors who are for instance doing the night shifts, and they get people who are drunk, for instance. They also need to know what is going on, even though they are treating the different problem primarily.
Yeah, and we also offer courses on brief intervention and screening. Yeah, stuff like this.
And that's very important, utilizing all the professionals that we have, because as you guys mentioned, so substance use is not exclusive to one profession. All of us in different aspects of our work and even in our lives, we will encounter people that actually needs like assistance, and screening and brief intervention are definitely great skills to have. So, with that, I don't see any more questions from our audience. We thank everyone for being here, for participating, but most especially, we would like to express our appreciation to Elizabeth and Renata. Thank you very much. We are very delighted to have you here with us, and thank you for generously sharing your time and resources, your knowledge, in presenting this webinar. So, again, for everyone, we invite you to our next event. On April 8th. And you can follow us on our social media or visit our website to know more about the details. So recordings and the slide will be sent to you, as well as the certificate, in a couple of days. So with that, we wish everyone a good day. For those breaking their fast, like blessed Ramadan to all of you. And again, thank you everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Renata. Bye.
Bye.